Hey guys, Hayden here again from Alarm System Store, and today I thought I'd show you how to partition a IQ Pro alarm system. So it's actually super simple on this system. Essentially, all you do is you go into your system settings, but essentially you just enable partitions, and then whenever you're setting up all your different devices, you just select what partition each one's going to be on. So it's much simpler than any other system I've worked with, except for, maybe the IQ4 because it uses the same, setup. But essentially, we're just going to walk through it here real quick. Mine already is set up for partitions, but I'll walk you through every step that you would need to do. Currently, I have two devices connected, which are this keypad here and then this first contact. We're going to be adding this one, and we're going to be adding it to partition 2. So same thing that I'm going to show here is going to apply to any device that you want to partition on your system. So the first thing we're going to do is just get logged into our IQ installer app, get it connected to the system. Then click Config, Installation, Dealer Settings, and then Partition Settings. So as far as partitions are concerned, it's literally just this toggle. By default, it does come off. All you have to do, I probably shouldn't have done that, it takes a second, but anyway, all you have to do is come in here and you toggle partitions on, and then it will start populating the partition settings for all of your devices, which once this finishes loading, I will show you here in just a second. All right, so we're going to turn those back on real quick, and then we'll go ahead and back out. It can do that in the background. But anyway, once you have partitions enabled, back out to the installation screen, click on Devices, and then Security Sensors, or whatever you want to add. You can set up PGMs so they only work for specific partitions, whatever the case. But we're messing with security devices today, so click Devices. Now, for this, I have the one keypad set up, and then I have our first contact here, which I just labeled Partition 1 Door. And like I said, we're just going to be adding that second sensor, and we're going to add that to Partition 2. So all you do for that is you would go into your core bus, and since this is a hardwired zone, I'm going to click plus down here to add a hardwired zone. And then you'll notice here at the top there is a new option that you wouldn't have seen otherwise if partitions were not enabled. So it just says partition name, and it shows you all 8 partitions that you can select from. So we want this to be a partition 2 door, so we're going to click partition 2. However, it doesn't automatically remove the partition 1 assignment, so make sure you only have these specific partitions that you want this to work on selected. However, what that means though is you can have zones that are connected to multiple partitions. So for whatever situation, you can have your partition set up where multiple zones are attached to multiple partitions to give you, the exact customized setup that you want. Just pay attention whenever you're doing this part, because you don't want to, accidentally leave one of these partition settings enabled for a partition that zone does not apply to. So we only want this on partition 2, so that is how I'm going to set it up. You back out, you go through, do the rest of your programming, P2 door, and back out, and then we're just going to make it instant to make it simple. And then it is normally closed because I'm not using a resistor. Alright, so now we have P1 door, P2 door, and the keypad. So on our keypad here, what we can do is we have partition 1 up there at the top. This is the DSC touchscreens, which they already have built-in partition functionality. So like even on a DSC, you can use these to very simply access multiple partitions. So that's why I'm showing it here. The LCD keypads are not as intuitive when it comes to partitions, so I wouldn't recommend ever connecting or setting up partitions if you're only using those LCD keypads. However, the DSC touchscreen or the IQ remote touchscreens offer partition functionality that works super well. So on this one, if we bring up our zone status, it is only going to show us the devices that are on partition 1. And so that would be the P1 door and the keypad itself. However, if we go into Options, Partition Status, we do have to plug in our master code here. And then you can see through here that Partition 1 and Partition 2 are both not ready. Now the reason they are not ready is because I'm still logged into the programming, essentially, so it's not going to let me arm. However, if we click on Partition 2 there, it will bring up Partition 2 up here at the top, and then if we click on Zone Status, it is going to show us just the devices that are on Partition 2. Now you can see with the check mark there, both of our zones are technically good. Like I said, the only reason these partitions aren't ready is because we're in programming. So that is how you would set up basic partitioning for your systems. Now, if you do have LCD keypads and you wanted, each specific keypad to be connected to a specific partition, you can do that as well. So under our keypad here on the app, we can go into the edit options with the pencil, and then at the top, that same partition name option is still there. So if we wanted an LCD keypad, for Partition 1 that just controls all of Partition 1, and you don't want to mess with Partition 2 from that keypad, you can do that, and then use another LCD just for Partition 2. If, all of these partitions you do want to be able to view and manage under the same keypad, you're going to want to use one of the touch screens just because it makes your life a whole lot simpler. I haven't used it, but I do believe global mode with the LCD keypads does work with the IQ Pro. I haven't tested that myself just because I hate global mode personally on an LCD keypad. It's just messy and it's so much simpler to just have a keypad for each of your partitions. But anyway, I digress. As I mentioned, this partition option is going to apply to any device that you connect to the panel. Even if I went and got a wireless device, that partition option is still going to show up there at the top, so you can select whichever partition any of your devices is going to be connected to. So that makes partitioning so much simpler than any other system I've worked with, save the IQ4, like I told you. All you do is essentially toggle on partitions and then tell it what's going to be where. It is a little confusing when you first turn on partitions because in here it's just going to tell you the amount of partitions that you have whenever you toggle it on. So don't let that confuse you. Just know that the partition count just shows the amount of partitions that are currently in use. So when we first set this up, now you can rewind if you want, but it showed the count as 1, and that's because we just had the one keypad and the one door contact. As soon as we added that second door contact, it changed the count to 2 so that anytime we view this screen, we can just easily see how many partitions there are. Now, one thing that you may find confusing is whenever you're looking at like your status on your app dashboard, it doesn't separate anything into partitions. You do have to go into the core bus, like the devices section, to actually see what's on which partition. The only other odd thing that I found with this is you can't name your partitions. So unlike the DSC Neo, for example, you can go in and give your partitions a label. Maybe I'm just missing it on here. However, I haven't seen the option to add labels to each partition. It's not particularly necessary. I mean, you should know what each of your partitions are, but like on the Neo, when you went to partition status, instead of showing partition 1 and partition 2, it would say like main house and outdoor garage or whatever the case might be. So that's the only limited capability that I can find, and like I said, I might just be missing it. However, I'll keep looking at that, and if I find anything, I'll post a comment on this video or something just to let everybody know. However, everything else regarding partitions is super simple. So, but that's going to do it for me. If you guys have any questions, by all means, leave them down below. Hopefully this was informative, and for those of you looking to partition your system, it helped you out. Otherwise, though, if you don't mind, leave a like and subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one.